In the previous video, we discussed the AccountingLink for QuickBooks Desktop sync preferences. In this video, I'd like to show you how the sync wizard works. Let's take a look at a project I set up that we can use for today's illustration. I numbered it 17-004. We called it Greenbrier Physician's Office Door and Window Replacement. Let's just go ahead and open that project, take a look. You can see right now we have a directory and the existing companies. Excel Corporation is the customer. David Holler Construction is our sample construction company. The first is Bright Tile Works, which is a supplier. We have Interior Specialists, which is a subcontractor, and Pitzer Painting Contractors, also a subcontractor. You can also see that we've already set up some job cost codes. Now let's go to Projects and Contract Admin. We'll take a look at the same project. We can see, again, the 5 cost codes. If we go into Prime Contracts, I click 1, just take a look at that. One thing to note is, first of all, that the Prime Contract is marked approved, and it has a issue date and status date of January the 9th. So transactions come after that date. Customer is designated. Let's just go ahead and copy this down. We'll just replace the scope of work with that little description. We can also notice that the customer is going to hold 10% retainage from our contract, and we're going to hold 10% retainage from subcontractors. I'm going to click Save. Just a quick look. A couple things I'd like to point out. I intentionally inserted some information throughout this project in Prime Contract that will help me illustrate some of the features of AccountingLink for QuickBooks Desktop. For example, in the contract amount, I included a cost code 08100 and dollar amounts. Did this intentionally because this number isn't already in my QuickBooks Desktop company data folder. We'll go back to that in a little bit. Let's go back to the Prime Contract details again. Let's drop down and take a look at the budget. Again, included 08100. That's a cost code that doesn't exist in my QuickBooks Desktop Pro Premier Enterprise service items. Now let's jump over to Procurement. Notice that I've entered a few sample invoices. I entered 2 subcontracts and 2 sub-invoices. I'm going to open this just to show you what these were. Those are just the invoices. Subcontracts are in here as well. And I also included 1 bill. Notice in each case, these are approved. But I included this vendor, Bright Tile Works, as a supplier because this supplier is not already in my vendor list in QuickBooks Desktop. Also, I'm going to jump over to Human Resources, and we're going to come down to Labor Time Cards, and we're just going to go to Reports, go to Time Card Summary by Employee, and we can see that we've entered 40 hours for Gordon Hill on the project we're talking about today. And if we looked at it a little closer, we can see that some of the time we entered for this time card also is to that cost code 08100. That's not already in QuickBooks Desktop Service Items as a cost code. So let's jump over to QuickBooks and just take a look. First of all, the supplier, Bright Tile Works. We just want to show you that it's not already over here. And if I go to Lists and Items, you can see these are service items. Also note, GL account for the income would be 40000, and the cost of goods sold account is 50000. Okay, we'll come back to that later. But if you come up here and notice that 8100 or 08100 is missing. Now let's go into our AccountingLink. This is the gray icon on your desktop, downloaded from the last video. I'm just going to sign in, just connecting to my QuickBooks. Let's go up here to Sync. If we open this up, we'll take a look at it. We're going to see that there's 9 steps that you can perform. You can do this daily, weekly, however often you need it. And you can choose to include or not to include any of these steps. And don't be afraid to run this for the first time because it's very easy to skip over items if you're not certain. We're just going to click Sync Selected Items. Let's just take a look at the project we're looking at. So this is the first step that's available. Corcon Projects Ready for Export. So since we just created this one, we can come down right here. We're going to click Export. Notice I could skip all, or I could just check only the ones I wanted. If I wanted to check them all, I could just check here at the top. But in this case, I just want to include Greenbrier, the project that we're working on right now. So we're creating this project in Prime Contract in QuickBooks Desktop using this step of the AccountingLink Sync Wizard. I'm just going to click Export Approved Projects and Contracts. Now, here we see Bright Tileworks doesn't already exist in my QuickBooks desktop. So it's now appearing here. It's asking me if I want to import this vendor into QuickBooks. I'm just going to check checkbox and click Export Project Directory. Now we can see there's one bill. As you recall, that's the bill that the total cost was charged to the cost code that's already not existing. And let's go down and pick up those two subcontract invoices. And we're going to click Export Approved Bills. And this is for miscellaneous expenses. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Skip. And now we see some prime invoices, which we don't have one yet. We're going to go create one in just a moment. But if we wanted to choose these, we could. I'm going to click Skip here. And there's two employees ready for export, but we're going to skip that because they're not relevant to this. And now we have time cards ready for export. If we go down to Sort by Project, I'm just going to pick the ones that are relevant to this. It'll be these 5 time cards for Gordon Hill. I'm going to click Export. So it automatically brings us back to the sync log, just to show us that all the information that was imported into QuickBooks. Notice that there's no exception messages. We could click Only Errors. Of course, there is none in this case. We could also select a range. All of your sync logs from the past will also show up here. You could go back and look at those if you needed to. But in this case, it's only showing us the sync log for the ones that we did just a moment ago. So we're going to click Home. Now there's two features here that I just want to mention. The discrepancies is a feature that you can run as part of the wizard once transactions have been imported from CoreCon into QuickBooks Desktop. This discrepancy process will go into QuickBooks just to see if any transactions were updated or changed, edited in the past 120 days. And when you're done that process, it'll give you a little report. The payment, which is just below that, does something similar. However, it's looking for references to vendor bills paid in QuickBooks Desktop, and it also looks for payments that were received from customers against your customer billings. Both of these processes take some time, so we always suggest that before you click this, maybe go to lunch as soon as you do click it, because it may take 15 to 20 minutes. It is looking through a lot of transactions and comparing them. It's a nice little feature. The reference and payments, when you get to that, that'll show up in CoreCon, which is convenient for maybe project managers or others that need to see that but do not have access to QuickBooks directly. It does bring over a reference to the payment and a date. Now let's go back because we need to create a prime invoice on that contract. Let's just go over to Projects, Contract Admin. We'll select the prime contract and project again. This time I'm coming down to prime invoices. Click Add Manually, just checking the order number, the prime invoice number. We're going to set a date. Let's move it back to January 31st. Net 15. Just notice that my customer and my customer contact, as well as our construction company and our company contact is included. This isn't a retainage invoice. That's something we would do at the end. So we'll skip that and we're just going to click Next. And let's just go in and add a few of these. I could go, let's just add these two. We'll go here and put 100%. Click Add and Apply. I could come over to here and put 50% under New Percentage column, and you'll notice that it's going to update the current total. I could do the same here for glazing. Just put in a dollar amount, and the percentage automatically updates. We'll leave the last one unbuilt. Notice again that the 8100 cost code, metal doors and frames, is the one that's not already in QuickBooks. So that's the one we're going to watch here in a little bit. And then we're going to click Add and Close. One other thing to notice about this is we did set it up so that the customer is going to withhold 10% retainage. Just going to go back to Prime Invoice Details. I could come up here and print out that Prime Invoice, prepare it to send to the customer. There's the first page, second page. But if I come down here to the summary, I can see the current invoice is $31,750. There's going to be retainage, $3,175. The payable is $28,575 from our customer to us. There's also a little summary here for the retainage again, and so on. Now, let's go back over to the CoreCon sync and run that wizard one more time. So this time we're going to go through the sync, click Sync Selected Items. These are CoreCon projects ready for export. It was already exported on the last one. We're going to show that in QuickBooks in just a little bit. We're just going to skip this. Notice that these are two bills that aren't relevant to this project, so we're going to skip those. These are miscellaneous expenses, again, not relevant to this project, so we'll skip those. Now we see Corcon Prime invoices ready for export. There's the Prime invoice we just created, so we're just going to check that one. Click Export Approved Prime Invoices, and it will skip employees. And we've already done the current time card, so we'll skip that as well. There's our sync log, shows everything went over fine. Now, so let's go take a look at what we did on the QuickBooks desktop side. First of all, the system went in and created a new prime contract right here. Come back to that in just a moment. We can also see, if we go over to here, see it created a new prime invoice. We can see that the line items are detailed as well as the retainage. We're going to show how that posted to the general ledger in just a moment. Click Save and Close. We can go up and take a look at the vendors. Let's go to the vendor center. And we can see that the supplier, Bright Tile Works, now exists. And so let's just go in and take a look at the bill. See, they brought in that $480 bill. Save and close. The other two were subcontractors. The first one was Interior Specialists. And we can see the invoice that we just posted right here. And Pitzer, Painting, also invoice we just posted here. One thing we also want to go back and pick up is if we go back to the customer center, we can take a look at how this posted, because you'll notice that it first posted under the customer, that's the customer profile, and then posted this as project number, and then a hyphen. The 001 here represents the prime contract. We could have multiple. So let's go take a look at what we did. There's a short video in Help about how to create this custom report. I'm just going to come down to my memorized reports to here. This report that shows not just the transaction type, but it shows everything we did, everything we've imported today. Memo. You can see the general ledger, how it posted, and by the item description. You can see that the retainage from the prime invoice posted correctly to retainage receivable, and that the retainage from the two subcontracts posted correctly to retainage payable. We can see all the bills and the invoice that posted. The cost went to cost of goods sold. The offsetting entry, or the credit in this case, was the accounts payable account. We can also see that the prime invoice posted correctly, and as well for the material supplier bill. Everything's posting correctly. Another key point we want to highlight: the invoices that include line items with the cost code that is not already in our QuickBooks desktop, which was the cost code 08100 metal doors and frames, because it could not find a service item to match, it was posted to the CCUNC unclassified cost codes. You can see one here, and we can see one here. The other thing we want to point out is that we had some labor time cards that pulled over as well. We can see these posted in the AccountingLink for QuickBooks desktop sync log, the same project that we're talking about. The employee was Gordon Hill, and the date range was the week of the 10th through the 13th of January. We go back to QuickBooks, go to Employees, and into Enter Time, we can choose the Use Weekly Timesheet and select the employee, Gordon Hill, and scroll back to the week. We can see that the labor time card's imported as well. You also notice that we used that cost code on the Corcon side for 08100, which it couldn't find, and again posted the labor time card as well to the service item that we used for clearing. That's the CCUNC. Additional information about this subject can be found in Help.